Hey guys, today I'm going to be demonstrating variable scope within GameMaker Studio. You effectively have three main variable types, or scopes. You have global, instance, and temporary/local. First, we'll start off with our global. They can be accessed from anywhere. They glow purple in the default editor. You initialize them somewhere with this keyword global var. They now glow purple. And you can modify them from literally anywhere. Any object, anytime can modify these values. There's another way to initialize global variables where you use this global dot notation with the variable name, but then you actually have to use that global dot notation every single time you read or write that variable, which is a bit of a hassle. And it really just lets you recycle the variable name for local or instance variables, because this way, my global variable, this is essentially like a keyword now. They can't be used for anything else. But we'll just stick to this simpler way. So I'll have a basic demonstration here. I show you a value that I start at 1, and then I create this dummy object that has absolutely no code in it. It's just for demonstration purposes. So with that dummy object, so this code is really just launched from this object's perspective, nothing crazy here. And it accesses the variable and changes it to equal 4. Then I destroy that object and print the new value. So you'll see here, it goes from 1 to 4. So the significance of this is that no pointers had to be passed around. A dummy object could directly and independently access my global variable from anywhere. It could do it in any function, any event, anywhere in the game. This is essentially like a keyword, a global counter, whatever you want it to be. Okay, so now we'll move on down to instance variables. These are a bit different. They have to be changed or read from the perspective of knowing the ID of the instance that owns the variable. So for example, we have my instance variable equals 2. This is being set by the controller from the controller's perspective in this create event. I show you the value here. So we create a dummy object again, but this time we have to pass a pointer directly into the child dummy object here. We actually pass in a variable, we're calling it daddy, but what it's holding is the controller's direct ID, right? So then when we come down here and we do with dummy, daddy dot my instance variable equals 5, daddy is really the controller. So this is from the dummy's perspective, and this is this controller instance's context. Then we're changing the variable that is directly owned by this controller instance. So these variables are actually in reference to the same variable. And then we update that, and I show you the new value. So we go from 2 to 5. So the reason why you would want to use instance variables is, let's say you have many instances and they all have their own context, right? Let's say you have a big grouping, a list of soldiers, and then, maybe there's some area damage that hits many of them simultaneously. You would want to iterate through that list and then say, soldier dot my health, minus equals 5 or whatever. So they all have a health variable, right? So you would want those to be instance variables because every soldier has a health variable. Fantastic. Now we'll move down to local variables. I have a temporary throwaway function here, and you initialize them with var. They glow yellow. Instance variables glow blue, and global glow purple. So these local variables that glow yellow, they are very fast and they're terminated at the end of their scope. So that could be an event or a function, because events are more or less functions, right? This is the create event of the controller, more or less a function. So I have a function here where I establish a few variables, E, F, G, that are just incrementing all the way back to what was passed in. All of these variables are thrown away and discarded at the end of this function, right? They only exist for the extent of this function. They're very fast. So we initialize my local variable. This variable innately is now only alive until the end of this create event. I show you the value, then I pass it into here. All of these are throwaway values. I return that value plus 3, which should be 6. And then I show you that value. And then at this point, that value has more or less been deallocated. And then we end the game. So if I created like a step event here and then tried to access my local variable, the game would actually throw an error and crash because my local variable no longer exists. So if we run that, you'll get 3 and 6. So there we go. So the importance of knowing scope is primarily for speeds, at least for the local variables. They're very fast. You would want to use those. And you don't want to get instance variables mixed up with local variables, because if your functions just innately use instance variables, then you may have functions that should be using local variables, but they're now changing instance variables. And then you could start having like trans function collisions of values that you don't want. So it's good to keep everything clean and split up and used correctly. Okay. I hope this helped clarify some things. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for watching.